Hello and welcome back to Open School of Business. Today I have a pleasure to introduce you to Amy Zander, a CEO and a co-founder of Zeedia Media. She is the brand expert, and today we're going to talk about branding, brand archetypes. So we're going to start with her story of her becoming an entrepreneur. Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to the show. I'm very good, thank you.
Good.
I would like to start with the question of how you became an entrepreneur. How did you become an owner of so many businesses?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like to call myself a serial entrepreneur. So I started in high school with a house cleaning business to raise money for college. And then when I was in college, I was writing papers and editing papers for people before you could actually just buy papers online like you can now, right?
Wow.
So I did that. And then my husband and I ran a hunting lodge in northern Michigan. And we didn't own it, but we were contracted to run it. So we kind of had our own little business doing that. And then that got to be a little crazy because we had 2 little kids at the time. So we moved back to Lansing, Michigan, which is where we live now. And we tried to open a brewery in 2008, but that was just a really bad time in the economy, and that didn't happen. So about a year later, I bought a small coffee shop cafe in our hometown and ran that for a couple years and sold it. And then I started Zeedia Media. So why I landed in marketing was through all those different experiences that I had, the thing that I liked doing the most was the marketing and promotion of those businesses. So that's how I ended up in marketing.
I think it's always very exciting when the business starts, and it requires a lot of marketing and branding and a lot of soul searching for the business owners. And that's why I think that brand archetype topic is very relevant to that. So on the example of Zeedia Media, how would you describe your brand archetype, and how does it reflect in the services you have or in the communications that you try to adhere to and have that kind of standard?
Sure, that's a good question. It took me a while to figure out what my archetype was going to be for my business. It didn't just come right away to me. I tried a few of them on and lived with them for a while to see what I wanted, but ultimately I landed on the outlaw archetype. So if you think about businesses like Apple Computer and Harley Davidson, companies that kind of think outside the box, are edgy, don't really maybe follow all the rules. And that's me, for sure, my personality, but it's also about freedom. So in every archetype, what you're trying to do is convey an emotion and have that emotional connection with your audience. And my emotion is freedom. If you think about like Robin Hood was another outlaw, and he had freedom. And I don't rob the rich and give to the poor like Robin Hood did. But ultimately, I want to give my clients freedom from the burden of marketing. So I want them to be able to concentrate on their business, their services, what they provide their clients, and let me take care of the marketing. So I want them to feel that sense of freedom.
Oh, wow. I really love the whole emotion connection factor in the brand archetype theme. And let me, and correct me if I'm wrong, can you go through all the 12 and give us the corresponding emotion to just kind of do a little bit tour into that world?
Sure. You're kind of putting me on the spot. I got to remember all 12 off the top of my head. I'm just kidding. I can do that. So the first one is the mother archetype. And the feeling of the mother is all about comfort and security and customer service. So you want them to feel very comfortable. And then there's an archetype of the hero. And that archetype is you want everybody to feel like they're productive, energetic, and they can save the day with their clients. So they are the hero of the day. And then there's the jester, which brings fun to everything that they're doing. We all know those kinds of brands that are just wacky and crazy and, do things really hilarious. There's the artist. Some people call it the creator. And not only are they creative themselves, but they bring their vision of their clients into reality. So they help other people see their own creative side for that one. And then there's the outlaw that I already talked about. There's the neighbor. Sometimes people call that the everyday girl or everyday guy. And that one is all about feeling like you belong and feeling like you're understood because you know somebody. And there's it's a high trust one because of familiarity. There's the guru or the sage archetype, which is also built on trust, but for a different reason. You trust these people because they know what they're doing. They're credentialed. They have the experience or the education and the data and the science to back up whatever they're talking about. Then there's the innocent. Sometimes it's called the angel. And that one is about childlike wonder and making the world simple and easy and just bringing everything down to a really easy, calm level. And then there's the magician, which is about transformation. Some people don't like the word magician. They think it means like sleight of hand or trickery. So sometimes we call it the butterfly or transformation because it's all about transforming. And then there's the explorer archetype, which is about physically exploring the world or exploring and experiencing like experiences. And then there's the lover. There's two sides of the lover. There's the romantic side of the lover that would be like Hallmark. And then there's the sex side of the lover that would be like Victoria's Secret. And then lastly, there's the ruler archetype, which is all about being the best, dominating your space, and, knowing that you're the best and you're either with them and you're not, and they don't really care. So that's just like a quick rundown of all of them.
I see. So everyone listening, just see where you're like you feel some kind of connection, or if you're resonating with the certain words, that might be a sign that you belong to that archetype. Or if you're a fan of certain brands that are in that space, it must be that you're drawn to them. So that can be a nice indication. But, for example, Open School of Business, I always thought it's like a combination of sage and magician, because I love seeing people transform. And that's what I do in my classes where I teach entrepreneurship. But I feel like the podcasting side is more just sharing the knowledge, talking about the concepts that can help people. But then again, through my journey and experience, I kind of try to combine, and I'm not totally sure if it's okay to combine. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is. It is okay to combine them. What we tell our clients is a couple different things. So you can combine them in two ways. You can take two archetypes and mash them together and kind of come up with your own new archetype. That's its own thing. Or what you can do is you can have a dominant archetype and then a sub-archetype. And when you do it that way, you just have to make sure that your message is always dominated by the one and undertoned by the second. What you don't want to do is flip-flop them and have one be strong in one message and the other will be strong in another message, because then you're having an inconsistent brand. You're giving an inconsistent message. So the whole point of the archetypes for businesses is, marketing is hard. It's a hard thing to do, especially if you're not a marketing expert. And even if you are, it's still hard, trust me. But, you want to focus on whatever it is you're doing and selling and providing your clients and marketing. So why I love archetypes is it takes this giant job of marketing, and instead of having to do all the things and all the messages, you're focused on one message because you've defined your archetype and you know what that message is. And so all you have to ask yourself then is, every time you create a blog post or do a podcast or do a billboard or anything that has to do with marketing, you just ask yourself, did I use the right words and images and tone and music, if it's audio, that conveys my archetype? And if the answer is yes, then you did a good job.
Awesome. Yes. Another question I would like to ask is, you talked about emotion. For example, let's say the sage. It's so much up in the head because it's all about the knowledge, the facts, the data. How do you create emotion there?
Yeah, the emotion that goes along with the sage and guru is being, first of all, you trust them, right? Because they have the credentials to back up what they're saying. And they also back up what they're saying a lot with stats and statistics and figures and science and things like that. So they're very, like you said, very cerebral. But I think with the sage and the guru, the biggest emotion that can come through is just knowing and being really comfortable in knowing and trusting them that they have your back. They understand what they're doing. They're like your guide, right? If you think about the big sage on the mountain that people climb up to and, oh, wise sage, answer this question. And then trusting that their answer is right. And so that emotion is just being, trust us. We know what we're doing. We know what we're talking about, and then we can prove it.
Mm-hmm. I love the trust part of it as well, because I think it connects with some other brand archetypes. And I feel like maybe there are some, like how you have in horoscope, the water signs, the fire signs. There must be some kind of grouping in the brand archetypes as well, where, like, for example, care and trust is something that encompasses some of them.
That is very true. There's also a way that you can group them by energy level. So that's really important too to think about when you're considering your archetype, is that some of them are super high energy. Like, as you can guess, the hero is very high energy, the jester is very high energy, and then
Outlaw,
the innocence or the angel one is probably the lowest energy, because that's the whole point, is that it's being very calm. And then there's like the middle of the road ones that are energy too, which would be like your neighbor, your sage, things like that. So that is also one that you can group together. Yeah, it's very interesting. We have a questionnaire on our website that's free. It's at brandarchetypes.com, and you take its 90-ish questions, and they're all about your business. And then when you're done with them, you get your results immediately, and they list all 12 archetypes in order based on your answers, and you can click on each one, and it'll take you to the page of our website that'll explain all about the archetype. We do a SWOT analysis. We show you examples of big brands that you would recognize that are using those archetypes. And it's very funny not funny, but it's interesting when you get those results, because they are grouped that way. You're going to have either the low energy ones at the top or the bottom, and the higher energy ones at the top or the bottom. They're usually not spread all over, because people are, one or the other usually.
Yeah, right. So it's very interesting, because the business owner has so much impact on the business itself. Like, when you went through all these different businesses, from a physical cafe shop to a services where you just sold reports and papers, for example, were you always the outdoor brand archetype, and did it apply to all of your businesses, or you had to go through some kind of personal transformation together with your businesses? That's
a great question. I've never been asked that before. So I didn't really know about brand archetypes, when I was younger. So it wasn't something that I was thinking about or doing. And I wasn't even always thinking about brand necessarily. My cafe that I had was the lover archetype. It was different because we always said we baked love into everything that we did in our coffee, and we had that just that warm, cozy kind of romantic love sort of thing. And it's also about passion, right? So we were very passionate about the stuff that we baked. So that was completely different. And then, like I said, with the marketing, it did take me a little while, because I knew I didn't want that for this one. But I wasn't sure at first. And so I tried a few different ones on, and I did try the neighbor for a little while, but I felt like it wasn't quite enough. It wasn't exactly who we were. And I do feel like having brand archetypes as part of our strategy in my marketing makes us a little bit different outside the box. It's not something that everybody does. It's very amazing and awesome to connect with you who does this as well and understands it. It's so cool. But you don't find it very often in a lot of marketing agencies and my other people that I collaborate with in marketing. I mean, they do understand brand, but it's not something that everybody uses. And so it does make us a little bit different.
Oh yeah, I think it's very cool, and it's really fortunate. I think you have so much energy that you're putting into the Outlaw. Like personally, I love that brand, but maybe there's somewhere in kind of deeper level, I have that kind of feeling. Maybe I'd be, attracted to some of these brands, but building a brand like that, I think requires so much energy. And for example, like there are some other brand archetypes that for the clients that I've been coaching, and I see that some of them, they prefer like an average boy or girl kind of archetype. But they feel like, oh, what am I going to do with it? It looks kind of boring and I want to stand out so the clients can find me. How do you solve such conundrums when clients feel that way? Is that because maybe they're not really authentically regular guy people? Or is it because they're trying hard to fit in with the client's ideas about what is good for their brand?
Right. So I think if a particular brand really resonates with somebody, like you said, like you mentioned, the neighbor or the everyday girl guy, it might just be a case of them really not embracing the archetype fully yet. So I always say to my customers, you don't just want to kind of be your archetype. You want to run right up to the line of your archetype and tip over it. So you want to just really lay it on thick and be that archetype in everything that you do. And once you do that, then you'll really, really understand your brand and that emotion, and your brand will just become that much more solid. So that happened with me with Zeedia Media. So we're like, okay, we're going to be the outlaw archetype. This is what this means. And we were chugging along and we were doing it. But then a couple years in, we adopted this idea of being a marketing mob. And so I coined myself the mobstress of marketing, and we recreated our roles. So my second in command is my underboss, and everything we do is based on mobs and mobsters. And once we did that, our brand really took off. So that was when I felt like we fully embraced what we were doing. So I think if somebody has selected their archetype, but it's just mediocre, or they feel like it's not quite working for them, then they just need to embrace it more. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with the energy of the brand either. The neighbor archetype is a lower key archetype. However, it's extremely powerful in the fact that it makes everybody feel invited and everybody belongs. And who doesn't want to feel that way, right? So it's like walking into your favorite bar and everybody knowing your name, or being, the center of your neighborhood where you host the barbecues. Always being there to lend a hand, to lend a cup of sugar, and people really, really trust you because they know you and they're familiar with you. So you really got to put yourself out there with that brand, but it is very powerful, and it can go up against a lot of other brands. So if your competitors are more flashy, say they're a jester brand or an outlaw brand, or, something like that, that isn't going to appeal to everybody. Some people might be like, oh, they're a little bit too crazy for me. This, this neighbor brand over here is much more my style, and I trust them more because they're, they're not trying to be something or whatever. So your brand is for yourself. It's not for your customers, and not every customer is for you, right? So you can't pick your archetype based on who your clients are necessarily. You have to pick it for you and your values and your standards and the emotions that you bring to the table, and then know that you're going to attract the right clients because of that. And that's hard, especially when you're a new business starting out and you want all the clients, all the money, all the things, and you might not have necessarily figured out exactly what your niche is or who your ideal client is yet. And it takes a while to figure that out. It took me a while. And so I was worried at first that I was going to turn people off if I, swore a little or put this picture up here a little or whatever. And now I don't care. I'm like, it's fine. This is my brand. It's who I am. And it attracts the right clients for me.
Also, a follow-up question is, since we're all now in a very small world online, this whole neighbor and doing things local sometimes doesn't necessarily work, because we wanna. How can you become basically the neighbor type in a online world?
Yeah,
where you're attracting clients.
That's a great question. It goes all the way back to that initial making people feel like they belong. So neighbor does evoke that feeling of community and closeness when you first think about it. Like, how can you be a neighbor from halfway around the world? But we all know what a neighbor is, what a good neighbor is. If you think about your neighborhood, whether it's now or growing up, or an example of like Mr. Rogers in the neighborhood and that kind of thing, that's what you're trying to do. So even if you're on a Zoom call or a telephone call or in an email, you're relating to that person on their level. You're inviting, you're warm, you're making them feel included. You're not using big, crazy words that they don't understand, like industry words. You know, you're being the ultimate host. So if wherever you are and wherever they are, you act like they're in your living room or they're at your house for a party. And how would you talk to them and treat them? You want them to feel really welcome. And that's what's got to come across all the time, no matter what medium you're talking through or connecting with them on.
Awesome. I like that tip, because I think it really helps people to figure out how to craft their communication online, how to create content. So that's a leeway into your next question about the services that Zeedia Media offers. And I see that content creation is one of them. Social media boost is another. And I'm particularly interested in the social media one for podcasting. You have the promo, right? What does it involve, and what kind of methods do you use?
So we do social media marketing on all the platforms, and we create your marketing calendar for the year. We create all kinds of content that go out on the different platforms. We craft them, differently for the different platforms. We use a lot of imagery, videos, and, hashtag lists and things like that. Consistency is key, right? So everything that we're going to be doing is going to be branded for you and your archetype, and it's going to have the right content and combination of the content and graphics and all that convey your archetype and your brand. And one of the things that I like to be an expert at, I guess, or something that I've really tried to build my practice about, is the content and the words you use per each archetype. And that is one of the first things that we do when a client comes to me and they need branding or marketing help, and we pick an archetype for them. And they say, okay, we're going to be, say, the neighbor archetype. Then we go back and we look at their website and we look at how they wrote their words. And then we say, okay, does this sound like a neighbor? Is this being neighborly? And we rewrite their content so it sounds more neighborly. And then we go through all their social media feeds, and we do that with everything that they have. And I think that's one of the easiest and first steps in embracing an archetype is through your content. And we have what we call our word banks for each archetype. So there's 12 of them. And so it's pages and pages and pages of words and phrases and ideas that you can use for your archetype, that you can start like sprinkling that through all of your content and things like that. And once you start using all those words regularly and putting them in there, it makes your content flow, and it's a really easy way to get that archetypal message across. So we sell those, and they're $29.95. They're really cheap, but they're like tons of pages of stuff, and we've spent years creating those.
I really like asking this question from business owners who've been in business for a long period of time. What's your philosophy of people management, and how many people do you have right now at your company?
Sure. I have three key team members on my team, and then I work with some other contractors. I have a videographer that I work with quite frequently, because that's not something that a service that we provide in-house. I have a Google Ads expert I work with a lot, and a few other people I collaborate with, quite a few different marketing people, just on different things, because just like anything else, I can't do and know all the things, right? And there's other people that are better at different aspects of marketing, and they are amazing and they make me look good. My philosophy with managing people is very much on brand for me. It's very much outlawish. When I hired my second in command, my underboss, Melissa, she's amazing. So I was, I told her when I was interviewing her, I said, look, I said, I'm a big idea kind of person. I don't get really nitty gritty in the details. I said, most often, I'm going to give you an idea and I kind of want you to run with it. And I want you to show me what you can come up with. I think working with creatives, that's a really good way, because creative people in most marketing people in the marketing field are creatives in some way. They need that freedom. Again, going back to that word of freedom, right? So yeah. I was talking to her about that. I said, if anything, I might not give you enough information. Like, you have to be really comfortable saying, hey, Amy, that's cool, but can you explain that a little bit more? And I'll be like, yeah, of course. And so we talked for a little bit. And she's like, so basically I get the impression that you want me to read your mind. And I was like, yes, exactly. I want you to read my mind. And she was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And she's been with me for a couple years now, and she does. She totally reads my mind. She's amazing. And I just say, hey, this is something I'm thinking about. Can you make it happen? And she's like, yep. And she makes it happen. And I don't even know how she does half the things that she does, but she does it. And so I really believe in giving people the freedom to do things the way they want to. The only real thing that I put on people is maybe like a deadline, especially if we're working with clients. I mean, we create daily, weekly, monthly content for our clients, which has to be done obviously at a certain time. But I give my people the freedom to work with the clients themselves one-on-one, be creative, come up with ideas and things like that. And they always amaze me. And they always end up being probably more creative than I would have been in some instances. So, yeah. And then it takes a lot of the onus off of me. I am not a micromanager. I'm the opposite of a micromanager. So definitely kind of the
really
outlaw
awesome.
brand. We couldn't be the guru.
Well, I wonder, how did you actually decide that Melissa is a good fit? Because it seems like you really did a good analysis on hiring her, because I don't think a lot of people would be able to deliver like that without much instructions.
Yeah. She's a unicorn. She is. She's amazing. She's a very talented graphic artist and web designer who can also master content. And you can't always find that in the same person. And she's very good at both. And I'm lucky. It just worked out really well. And she's been amazing. She's really helped me grow our business.
Oh, wow. Really cool. Yeah.
And my mom works for me, which is really fun too. I like having my mom work for me.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And also you said that you had business together with your husband. So if you were to maybe give advice on how to do business together with family members, I think sometimes it can be challenging. So you can definitely tell us the do's and don'ts.
Yeah, I pretty much have don'ts. So yeah, my husband and I ran the hunting lodge for 6 years when we were first married. So it was kind of trial by fire because we were with each other 24/7. And then we had 2 babies in 2 years, and it was very chaotic and hectic. And we realized that we needed to leave that and not do that. I love my husband very, very much, and I'd rather stay married to him instead of work with him. So he and I have very different managerial styles, very different workflow styles. He is much more organized than I am, and I'm like a big picture kind of person, and he's like the detail sort of person. And so we just realized we didn't really need to work together. And like I had mentioned earlier, we had tried to open a brewery together, and that didn't work. And even though that was devastating at the time that it didn't happen, looking back, I'm really glad that it didn't, because again, we would have been working together, and I'm not sure that we would have stayed married. So I don't know that I'm a good person to ask that, because I just believe, for me in my situation, that we run our house and parent our children very well together, but our businesses are very different. I did have the opportunity this year to work with my brother. He started a new business and wanted a website and a new logo and things like that. And he is very type A, very picky, very specific. And I knew that it would just go better if I let Melissa handle that account. And I was kind of on the outside of it a little bit. I started the conversation and then I said, hey, you guys go have fun, because Again, I love my brother, but I think we would have gotten in some fight that would have reverted us back to childhood. And so, and he and Melissa worked great together, and that turned out to be a really good decision on my part. So, yeah, it seems to me like I kind of avoid working with family other than my mom. My mom is amazing and she works for me. She is my role model and inspiration for being an entrepreneur. She created an amazing business when I was in like middle school and high school, and I watched her build this business, and she's to this day gives me incredible advice as far as managing employees and contracts and things like that. And what she does for me is she does research. So I have several clients, and she looks up just industry information on their industry and sends me up, like relevant current contact information and things going on in those industries that we can then use in social media. And I absolutely love giving her a paycheck every month. It's amazing. I love that feeling.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And also she must be really proud of you as well. Raising your daughter to be an entrepreneur, and especially since it was her beginnings as well. And it's just that it's great that you're appreciating and choosing the same profession like your mother. Yeah. So she must be really happy about that. Yeah.
We talk about that quite frequently, and she's really proud of my brother too. So she has 2 kids that started their own businesses. So yeah, and it's a lot to do with her. So. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Parental experiences, they might not necessarily tell us directly, but when we see growing up what they're doing and how they're living, that's kind of stays with us.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the best teaching and best upbringing ever. You've been in this industry for a long time. What do you think is the best kept secret that outsiders rarely hear about?
Marketing people hate Facebook too. Right? I
don't know if it's a secret anymore.
Yeah, no, it's not. I actually really love Instagram, and I really love TikTok too. But we get frustrated by it too. And marketing is overwhelming to us sometimes too. And I know, as especially like a small business owner, you're always hearing and seeing what other people are doing and this next platform that's coming out, or, oh, should I be doing this? And I feel like they're missing the boat. And that's a lot of things. Like when I first start working with a client, they're like, oh, should we be on TikTok? Should we be doing this? Oh, we're freaking out. And we feel that way too. I'm always like, oh, what's the next thing that's coming along that I've got to learn or do? And my advice to people is always stick with what you know first. So pick the platform that you like really well and get really, really, really good at that before you add the next new thing or something like that, because there's only so many hours in the day and only so much we can do. And get help with your marketing if you can afford it, or do things like brand archetypes or things like that make it easier for you, because it is this gigantic task that we all get overwhelmed by.
Amy, thank you so much for your time. It's been real fun. And if there's anything you would like to say at the end, this would be now.
Yeah, I would just like to tell everybody, I've been saying this a lot lately, because I think that there's a thing going around like imposter syndrome, right? People feel that, and a lot of business owners can feel that, and we don't always have somebody to turn to when we're feeling like that, because we're in charge. We have to know what we're doing, right? So my mentor, Kevin, said this to me one time, and I turn to this all the time, and I've tried to share this with as many people as I can because it really helped me. So if you are feeling like an imposter or doubting yourself or wondering like, why would somebody hire me for this? I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know enough about this. Just remember this. So I'm going to use myself as an example. It's called the 0 to 100 rule. So if you take marketing, and 0 being I know nothing at all about marketing, and 100 being I know everything there is in the world to know about marketing, where would I put myself on that scale? And I would probably put myself on that scale around maybe 50, 60, right? Because I work in this industry, but I know there's so much more I don't know. And all these other people I work with know things I don't know, right? So I know there's more to know. But my clients would probably put me at like 80, 90, right? Because I'm the marketing expert in their life. They're hiring me to do this, and I am doing it, and I'm doing a good job for them, and I know more than they do. So you only really have to know a little bit more than somebody else to be an expert and charge for it. So remember that when you're ever doubting yourself or feeling like an imposter, that you do know what you're doing. You do know more than somebody else about something. And that has helped me through so many almost moments of anxiety.
Oh, wow. It's profound because it's definitely something that we overlook because we're so good at it, at whatever it is that we're doing, that it doesn't feel novel anymore. It feels like everybody must know that
Right.
by now. Oh, you just Google it, you'll find
That's
that kind
true.
of thing.
That is true.
But people don't know what to Google because they don't know what they don't know. So I think you're just so on point, and thank you so much for this inspiration.
Oh, yeah, this has been so great. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to having you on Brand Archetypes as well.
Awesome. We agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, and have a great day.
You too. Thanks.